Hey guys, it's Frosty, and today I will be doing Newbie Adventures. For newer players, this would be a good opportunity to get a feel for the game, and I'll explain some tips and tricks on the way. And if you're a veteran, this is a way that I kind of wind down and relax from, like the stresses and competitiveness of Albion. I hope you enjoy. So Newbie Adventures is when I go to the market and pick up T2 gear and just run some solos. Whatever gear I pick up on the way, wear it if I can, and then just see how far I can go, without worrying too much. Is someone going to come in and kill me? Am I going to lose all my stuff? It's just a nice way to relax. I have been playing this game for just over a year now, and aside from the first month that I played the game, because I didn't have a clue what I was doing, most of the time I've always been in a competitive guild doing ZVZs, and it progressively got harder the more fame I had and the more serious guilds that I joined, which also meant that I had to put in more time for ZVZs as they become mandatory. And just over the year I've become burnt out, and now I'm just playing the game at my own pace, in my own time, doing things that I like without thinking, oh, is it that time I need to come on to do ZVZ now, or have I done my weekly attendance for ZVZ this week, or am I going to get fined? For newer players, when you first come into the world of Albion and you've just finished your tutorial, it can seem very overwhelming with all the options that you have. You think, oh, what am I going to do? Should I gather? Shall I refine? Shall I kill mob camp? Should I do these solos? Should I do the corrupted? Join a guild? My recommendation is to pick up gear that you like the look of, like I'm in a bow at the moment, and go into some solos, which are these green things up here, and kill some mobs, and that will give you a good head start into faming up your gear, which is the equivalent of XP, which will then allow you to wear higher tier, stronger stuff, and also give you a good idea of how the game mechanics work. As you can see here, the silver left on the ground doesn't have a red hue, which means that I don't have premium, or the person that killed that mob doesn't have premium. And yeah, I only recently came back from the game, so I don't have premium. But yeah, premium gives you bonuses for pretty much everything, for loot, silver. You get reduced tax on the market whenever you want to sell things on there. You can either buy premium with real life money or in-game currency, silver. If you do decide that you want to buy premium with silver, then I will not lie, it is quite hard. It is quite a hard journey. But once you get that first premium, everything just snowballs and everything becomes easier. So at the moment I'm wearing T2 gear, and if I was a newer player, I would recommend that once you've got enough silver saved up, buy the T3 gear, which will give you stronger gear, which will allow you to kill harder mobs. Because at the moment I'm killing, I think it is tier 3 mobs, which is actually a tier higher than the gear that I've got. The T3 gear is quite cheap, so once you've got the money for it, perhaps 1 or 2 solos, you can upgrade your gear by going to the market. And you'll see just coming up here that I'm going to target this red barrel that does a big explosion. When you're not really familiar with how the game or how the mobs work, it can be quite useful to use the barrel to your advantage. I mean, it's also useful when you find that you're maybe struggling with the mobs because you're in a lower tier gear, or you don't have as much fame as you should on your weapon to be able to kill the mobs easily. But if you round up all the mobs in a room and bring them as close to the barrel as possible and set it off, in a solo they're very effective, and kind of in the lower tiers most of the time will one-shot the mobs. But if you do a grouped dungeon, there are still some barrels dotted around, but they don't really do much in terms of damage to the mobs. It's only really more for solos where you'd actually pay attention and use them. And if you're wondering, what weapon should I play? What kind of armour shall I wear? There is an Albion online website that's got builds on it. But really, just at the beginning, play with whatever you want, whatever feels more fun to you. There used to be loads of solo builds that people would recommend for clearing dungeons faster. That also had a PvP aspect, and this is because I'm not sure how long ago it is now, but when I first started playing for a good couple of months, in fact it might only be recently this update came out, I don't really remember, but dungeons or solos used to stay open. So at the moment, if you go into a dungeon and there's no one else in there, bear in mind this is a solo dungeon, so if you go into a solo dungeon and there's no one else in there, you can wait a minute and a half and that dungeon will close. On the outside world, in the open world, the entrance to your dungeon will disappear. And this is good because, you know, you don't have to worry about anyone coming in up behind you and killing you while you're at low health or on the mobs or on the boss, and you can really grind on that PvE aspect. But yeah, before it used to be like that. Where builds that would have PvP elements to it as well would bring different foods and potions, and people have mixed opinions about it. Let me know what you guys think about that update. People I know really like it because they can grind out the fame without having to worry about PvP. They can just jump from solo to solo in tier 8 zones, get the most fame possible, fame up their gear. Well, some people might argue that, you know, it's reduced the loot, because obviously more people can do the higher tier solos now, and there's going to be more of them, because if a solo closes after a minute and a half, another one will spawn somewhere else. Whereas before you had to wait until you finished that whole dungeon, and then it will despawn about a minute or so after you completed it, and then another one will. So yeah, those are the two main arguments that I've heard, but do let me know what you guys think. You may have noticed as well that at the time of recording this, I was not picking up the silver, and that is a habit that I've never really kind of let go of. Because of the update that I just mentioned about the dungeons closing. One of the things that people used to do when the dungeons didn't close was leave silver on the ground. And this was so that if there was someone else in the dungeon with you, if they had combat logs on, they would be able to see you picking up silver, and they would know that you were in there. Arguably, you know, if you can clear the dungeon quite fast, quite, you know, effectively, then you just pick up silver and run. Some people say that, you know, the silver on the ground doesn't really matter, it doesn't really contribute to anything, especially if you're in a guild that might have a high tax, or you think, oh, most of that money's going to go to tax anyway, might not even pick it up. But yeah, that's a technique that used to be used when the solos didn't close. There used to be loads of other things that people would do as well, like leaving the mobs in the first room, hoping that if there was a diver who wanted to come into the dungeon and kill you, hopefully he'd see the first few mobs, not run through them and just decide, oh, there's no one in here, so I'll go back out. And actually, I think a few people still do that if they don't particularly want to wait for the timer to go off. And for this specific instance, or this dungeon, you'd leave these 2 archers that I'm fighting, that I just killed right here. You'd leave those 2 and then go on and kill these 3 mobs here in the corner and the boss. And the theory is, if somebody tries to dive you while you're killing these mobs or on the boss, the archer will be able to help you, because they have quite a long leash range. And that was quite a good technique if you were in one of these kind of dungeons. So I've changed my skills here on the boss. You may have noticed that my R skill, or my chest plate, was on the health regeneration, and this is because, to be honest, I forgot to get fish from the market. When you're doing solos, you should have fish so that it'll help with your health regen when you're going from mob to mob, so then you have to sit around for a while waiting for your health to go back up. But I forgot the fish, so I changed my chest plate to the health regen. And when you're fighting the boss, you're not going to be able to use that skill. You can only use it outside of combat. So I changed it to the reflective skill. And just in general, it's always a good idea to have a look at what kind of skills you have and see if any is good to switch out for bosses, especially if you're struggling on them. So yeah, that is all for today, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please consider a like and a subscribe, and I will see you guys later.